Hello, and welcome to the Battleship Brawl Companion. I'm Eagle for Zergin, and in this episode I'm going to be reviewing the GoldRose by SlimPickens. Right away we can see we've got a very compact ship. It's just 99 by 33 meters from the top, and a very heavily armored look. You see these hexagonal turrets, somewhat reminiscent of the Tiger II tank's turret. I've already got the ship up and running, and we can see it's making a speed of 15.2 meters per second, and when undamaged it's rock solid. The propulsion package back here is a pretty standard set of huge propellers and some rudders. Now they're all concentrated in the same place, so it's possible that if it shows its back to the enemy, one or two unlucky hits could take out most or all the propulsion. But other than that, the streamlining is pretty good. So despite only using 750 power or thereabouts, this ship does make about an average speed for this tournament. Let's move on to the hull defenses. We've got an outer shell of metal and heavy armor covering the most critical parts of the ship, such as the turrets, engines, AI, air pump ACBs, and probably ammunition somewhere. We do have some air pumps, although the ship is actually capable of floating even without air pumps, unless it gets further damaged. Probably due to a fairly decent amount of solid wood scattered throughout its hull. And in my opinion, that's really what you want to do. Don't rely on air pumps to keep your ship afloat, because it's pretty easy to breach these chambers. There's one interesting thing about the air pumps is at least one of these turret chambers has an air pump inside it. Let me unshrink the blocks. So even though the turret looks like it's taking up space, the space is actually still counted as empty for the purposes of an air pump. So a turret well is a there's still an opportunity to use that space for an air pump. And also turrets don't block propulsion-free space, so alternatively, you could try putting rudders or propellers inside a turret well. However, you can't both do this and use air pumps, because if the chamber is completely sealed, propellers and rudders won't work, and the chamber is not sealed, the air pump won't work. So you've got to choose one or the other at most. That's it for the main hull protection. Let's talk about the guns. We've got a main battery of 10 medium large guns. Let's see, the gauge here is 1673 millimeters. And we've got 3 secondary guns, which are of quite small gauge of about 800 millimeters. Now, the thing about this ship's guns is that they have a lot of ammo boxes. You see the main gun here has 30 boxes, and even the secondaries have a lot of boxes. We've got 72 boxes here, and these twin ones on the other side have 48 boxes. So that means these guns are not going to run out of ammunition anytime soon, even though the main construct only has 12 main ammo boxes. This also means that these guns are going to have a pretty good rate of fire for their size. The material provision is also pretty decent. 46 explosive, 40 hardening, and 6.5 fragments on the main guns. With let's see, we've got some kinetic damage on these twins. And on the single gun back here, we've got a mix of explosive and hardening. So, in terms of provisioning, these guns are pretty good. Now, here's a pity about this ship. The turret armoring looks very good. We've got a bunch of heavy armor on the top. So it looks like these turrets can take quite a few hits and keep functioning. Unfortunately, from the depths rules strike again. Let me explain what I mean. But first, let me shrink the blocks on the hull so we can get a better look. Now, when it comes to explosions, let me halt the ship. There's two special rules that you want to remember. One is if the explosion originates outside of a subconstruct, like these turrets, there's a line of sight traced from the explosion origin towards the actual turret block. So the turret block is all the way down at the bottom of the ship. If the line of sight hits the main construct before it hits a turret, then the turret is completely unaffected. So, in some sense, the deck does protect the turrets in a fashion. So if a shell lands on a deck, the turret is going to be completely unaffected. So that's good. But apart from that, the deck does not block explosions on the turret at all. So what happens if an explosion occurs on the turret? Well, if the explosion hits the top of the turret, we're still fine. Well, as far as most of the turrets go. It's still going to blow up the barrels because from the depths barrels are ridiculously fragile. But at least the entire turret is not going to be rendered non-functional. And with enough repair bots, you can probably get the turrets back up in reasonably short order. Now, so going back to the top of the turret, if an explosive shell hits the top of the turret and detonates, there's a second rule that can protect the inside of the turret, which is that the propagation of the explosion cannot travel to a cell if that would bring it closer to the origin. So the explosion, if it starts up here, it can go this way, it can go downwards, but it's not going to be able to go this way back towards the center of the turret because that will bring it closer to the origin of the explosion, which is up here. And since the turret is wider than the internals of the inside of the turret, it's not going to be able to affect those either. So, a shell hits the top of the turret, it's going to blow off the barrels, but it's not going to be a complete disaster for the entire gun. It's going to disable the gun for a while because the barrels are shortened or gone, but it's not going to take too much to fix up the turret. The problem is when a shell hits the side of the turret or the barrels. In this case, the explosion is going to travel down here, and now it's completely free to travel sideways and attack this thin neck of the turret. The deck is going to do absolutely nothing because of, from the depths, somewhat strange explosion rules. So the explosion is going to round this corner, and since this neck is only 3x3, made out of this not terribly strong metal and cram parts, it's basically going to go ahead and decapitate the turret. The top of the turret is going to fall off even though it was not destroyed by direct damage. Furthermore, it's got a clear path. If it's got large radius, it's got a clear path to hit the top of this this ammo provision up here, and it's going to destroy a bunch of that also. And this is exactly what we saw in the first battle. The turret took a hit on the side or on its barrels. The entire top of the turret was decapitated, and even a lot of this ammunition setup was destroyed. This is despite, to all appearances, having a pretty thick amount of armor between the explosion site and the internals of the turret. Hopefully this will be changed to behave in a much more intuitive manner in the future. I'm personally thinking of some algorithms that will hopefully be able to do this without costing too much computationally. But for now, there are these very strange subtleties in the explosion rules that you need to watch out for. So it is really a shame. This ship should really be a lot more durable as far as its turrets go. It should be just as durable as it looks like, and not how it actually performs right now in the game. But overall, a very intimidating and great-looking ship by SlimPickens. Despite these problems with from the depths explosion rules, you were eventually able to prevail in probably definitely the longest match we've had so far. As a match overall, probably the closest match. The last battle was decided just a few seconds. It was almost a draw, but the GoldRose managed to get the 5% threshold over the GNS Dreadnought just in time. But and secure the win. So SlimPickens is still in the primary bracket as of now, and I wish you the best of luck in the rest of the tournament. That's all I've got for this ship. See you next time.